Hello, this is Georgie Dragonfly. Welcome to another Cosmic Heart Conversation podcast, where we are delighted with these magical divine souls who present themselves in this now moment for us to share their wisdom, their story, and of course, the light codes, the light language, their journey with that. And today we're really delighted, we're really blessed with the beautiful Walter William Boyd. I hope I just said your last name right because I totally forgot to ask you. In the
You
flow, in
know,
the moment, we've had lots of giggles before we've even begun, and so much wisdom. Like I should have just pressed play straight away because you're just oozing with so much delightful information and expression of soul. So please welcome yourself into this space and let everybody know, who are you?
hey, Georgie, thank you so much for having me on your show. Who am I? Multidimensional being, passing off as this human called Walter William Boyd. But in all seriousness, I think my journey has always been to facilitate others knowing themselves. And it started with me attempting to understand who I am. It began with my astrology because, as an empath, as a sensitive, growing up in very energetic, passionate families, it can be very hard to really see who you are. You lose yourself in the energies of it all. And it was at university that I picked up my first book, serious book on astrology, and discovered me. And the journey has never really stopped. Where I am at the moment is to take that astrology to a point where it is able to highlight where the kinks and the distortions might be in a personality, and then use that information, that roadmap, to disengage the distortion, to allow for a more um, holistic, wholesome interaction between all the components of the self, of all the components that are held within the person, and to bring that forth. Because I think, if anything, we are here not to be caged in and to be just clones of someone else. We are here to be authentically, courageously ourselves, to allow that innate uniqueness to burst forth with every moment, with every heartbeat that we have. And it's not about being constantly in a state of joy, but in this authentic presence of being with everything that we come in contact with. And I think in the way that things always reflect in our world, as we uphold that integrity within ourselves, we give those that we meet, even if it's an inanimate moment, or just a moment where there's no one else in there, but even in that moment, that breath of life that's flowing through that moment, through our authenticness, we give that moment an opportunity to become the fullness of that it can actually present to the world. And that's my vision. I think my vision really is about allowing the sparks to fly, to allow the sparks to really come forth and show themselves for who they truly are. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but I hope I've not overstepped the mark.
No, I'm like, whoa, this is like so cool. Like the flow, the like inspiration, and like I said at the beginning, like before we started, I'm like flowy. I'm feeling all this energy from you, and it's really, really beautiful. Like it's just
Yeah.
like in an ocean of consciousness. We're just in that space,
Yeah.
and I really feel that, and that's what's coming in, and that's your energy. And it's like what you emanate, and I guess through that you gift that ability for others as well, because I feel like I'm in that flow with you, really beautiful.
Sunshine, sunshine, that's what I'd say.
Yeah. And like it's interesting. Yeah, I feel that as well with the joy. Really, we're not going to necessarily feel joy all the time, but it's like, how can we utilize that awareness of that expanded state of joy to bring it in to heal some aspects of our lives. And I think sometimes things play out in our life unconsciously because we're just not aware that it's even a wounding at all. We think that that's just society.
Yeah.
That's the way we're brought up to behave. And I guess astrology really helps to undercover that, what's actually playing out individually for us.
Absolutely, individually, socially, energetically around you, and just like in real life, no one person is really an island. No one person lives in a vacuum. So the energy of each person is constantly interacting with the energies of each moment and each person that they're coming into presence with. And the beauty here is that we each have, there's no one chart in the world. Even though when I pick a chart and I do readings for people, I always start with saying your chart is beautiful. And it's not because I'm bigging them up or I'm lying. There is an intricate beauty in this placement. It's literally the way I used to see it when astrology first came into my life. I used to say that each person is a moment in time and place given life and expression. So each person is a moment in time and place given the breath of life and expression. And that breath of life is constantly unfolding and meeting others in their process of unfolding, and even the environment that they are in, because you've got the energetic astrological atmosphere of any one time. Even the environment is irradiating that unfolding. And the beauty again is that each person may come into our field and activate a specific part of our chart that says, this is my wounding, or it may activate a part of our chart that says, this is my bliss. And so, this is not to imply that if you're having a bad time with a particular relationship, that person is intrinsically just a bad person. It's not that. It's just there are parts within the chart that are literally triggering. The way I look at it, it's what is the story, what's the narrative that we have placed upon a particular aspect. And when we actually met with our triggers, we can either push blame and say, get out of my space. And granted, there's always going to have to be a recognition of personal safety. You don't walk into a danger zone and think, at some point, this bliss moment is going to transmute everything. There's going to have to be that deep personal sense of responsibility of how much can I meet, how much can I transmute, how much can I face in this one moment. And that recognition should then be balanced with, am I ready to actually take charge of this trigger? Am I ready to take charge of this distortion? And from that point is when you can then take the first step towards finding the kinks in those distortions and finding a way in which to reframe the distortion into something that's a positive. In my chart, as an example, I've got Venus in somewhat complex interaction with the planet Uranus. And Uranus is about being non-conventional, totally individualistic. It's about being sometimes being a rebel. And Venus, we all know, is about the planet of love. It's about, and when you put the two together, it means unconventional love, totally independent. And on top of that, the angle that they are meeting at is one of stressful interaction. So growing up, that I used to think that would mean that I could never have a relationship, because that level of independence would constantly sabotage the concept of what I thought would be a normalized relationship, a home, a house, and everyone's married and whatever. And it was only through experiencing the life, I guess, where it actually teaches you, it's not about, I didn't come in here to not so much enjoy. I wouldn't use the word enjoy. It's not to be hemmed into the concept of this is the only way to have a relationship. you know, what my energy field is also saying is that relationships can also have a state of independence, that you can, that each individual within the relationship can be honoring of themselves, but honoring of each other. And yet the field that each person contributes to the relationship becomes a field of personal growth and independence, where they grow into the fullest potential that they can be. And I think that's what my relationships in my world, or in this incarnation, have actually taught me, where it's been a nurturing of that recognition that I've got to learn to aim towards that kind of relationship, where the relationship is honoring. It's honoring of each person. It's honoring of the individuality, the sovereignty of each person. But at the same time, it's not a cage. It's a place where blossoming can occur. So, you know, it has called for a reframing of the standard idea of relationship or relating for me, because there are other parts of my chart that says I would rather have that, you know, everything is nice and safe, everything is labeled, everything is labeled nicely, so everything has a schedule, so to speak. But the whole concept of that Venus-Uranus energy was like, no, we want the freedom, we want to bring in that fresh breath of fresh air. That breath of fresh air is what keeps the relationship alive. It's what allows it to blossom into its true potential. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I work with.
Yeah, and what a gift to be able to see that, how that needs to be navigated, and it's almost like changing and recreating like a new paradigm of how we could see that kind of relationship, because you know that's what, then you do that for yourself, but you also then create that for everybody else. You know, when you start to master these frequencies, patterns, and planetary patterns, it's going to then have an effect on not just your reality, but also like the collective field is then able to then tap into that, like, oh, like you can actually live that way, you can it doesn't have to be like that.
And I think, you know, that what you've just said is effectively the way I look at astrology now, that each aspect on the chart is effectively a key to an expression of energy, a type of energy frequency. So the Venus-Uranus energy is effectively saying that I have a key to the energy wave that says independent loving. A person who has, say, Venus, Neptune, would actually have a key to idealistic loving, romantic love. You know, so in a sense, if they were a healer, they could bring in the healing for where the sense of the magical has been lost in love. So a Venus Neptune healer, as an example, would then have direct access to that energy to bring in the mythical, the magical, and the sense of, there's a word that wants to come out, of hope back into a relationship. So that's the kind of energy that they can bring as a love energy healer. For me, as an energy healer for love, I would be the breaker of shackles, the breaker of the concrete blocks around your ankles. It allows you to feel that you are a sovereign being first, and then a partner second. You know, it doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship, but, you know, some relationships do start to cement themselves after a while, and that can stifle the true expression of each individual within the relationship. But the Uranian Venus energy would actually say, let us still have this relationship, but not have the shackles around our ankles. So that's something else. So, you know, it's interesting that you brought the idea that the paradigm shifting, and in some sense, each person, because you're a moment in time and space given the breath of life and expression, each of us have come in with a set of keys. And for me, when I actually do my readings, it's about giving those keys back to the person and say, these are the keys that you have. And so far, you may have been using this key, but you've forgotten about these keys. how can we actually use these keys and these keys and these keys together to create a more holistic expression, a more fuller expression of what you've come to be in this world? Another way I actually look at this is saying that you've come into this world with a cupboard filled with cocoa powder, flour, eggs, and sugar. And you may have actually just been working with cocoa powder and sugar for chocolate milk every night. But coming to the reading, I may say that you've got this, so how about starting to make chocolate cake instead, or pancakes, or something else completely? You know, it's recognizing what you hold within yourself, and then bringing forth those very qualities as gifts to the world, because we are each gifts to the world. When we are present, or when we are in presence, we become gifts to our world, to the moment that we are meeting in every moment.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I actually felt like emotional, like even at the beginning of when you said it. It just like it, with love, like on it, like I was like, oh, like yeah, that I just got this amazing, incredible visual of everyone on this breath of life move, and I just seeing it all around the earth, but coming in these like it's almost like geometry, and it's almost like you're all like on little slides going through, and it was just like wow. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, when you said that, yeah, it just totally it got me emotional. And it's interesting. So we're here with the codes. So the codes are. Do you implement coding within your astrology? Because it's another form of code, isn't it? It's like you're really unlocking the codes within people's DNA, within their life, their planetary structure.
India can, and each of us we've got our auric field. Since being in South Africa, there's been phenomenal shifts in the way I've perceived things. At one point, I mean, light coding started for me way back, way back when I was even before my teens. I was living in Brunei, and I'd find that I'd be speaking a language that was not shared by anyone else in the family, and it was always done in secret. And I always thought that perhaps I was talking to some imaginary friend, although I never saw an imaginary friend. It felt like I was talking to something or someone. And I would always find moments when it would come, and I would just be speaking the words, and then it would shut down, and I'd carry on as normal water. And one particular day I was outside, and I thought I was alone. And the words came, and I was mumbling away, and I was actually quite vocal that day. And I then heard the door slam right behind me, and I thought, oh my God, someone heard me. And because there was this innate recognition that it wasn't time for this to come out, I made a promise to myself that I would not be caught speaking this language again. I promised myself, to the point where come 2019, this is over 20 years later, it dawned on me that I used to speak a language. It felt like it was a dream that I spoke another language. The promise was so profoundly deep that it felt that when the recognition came that I used to speak this language, it felt like I must be dreaming. And so I had just moved into a flat. I found that there was this ancient well in my vicinity, literally, and I felt very drawn to being its keeper. That's a slight detour, but anyway, the depth or the strength of my promise to myself was so strong that in attempting to practice this language, I was the only one in the flat. There was no one else living with me. I was I was the only tenant. Even then, I would speak into the pillow so as not to be heard by anyone. Not that anyone would hear me, but it was that. And I think this is to address the importance of recognizing the power of our words, that promises that we make to ourselves, when done with true intention, can really create an impact on ourselves for better or worse. So to really start to recognize that when we really step into the power of our alignment, and we can talk about it as alignment of our chakras, or the alignment of the 3 power centers of the head, the heart, and the body, or just saying that we are truly aligned, everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that is conveyed in our expression becomes potent, you know. And so I found myself speaking to the pillow, and with that, the memory of this language came back. And then Marcus came into my life, and I found that coincidentally, this light language would become very active when I was around bodies of water. And I think that's why there was that feeling that this seminal point where I had moved into this location, and literally days after putting everything into place, Google Maps kept saying, what do you think of this place? And the name was so inconsequential. I kept thinking Google Maps is just being silly here. I kept, you know, disregarding it, swiping it, and sort of disregarding it. And then at some point before Christmas 2019, I thought, okay, I'm just going to check, what is this thing all about? Did a Google map. Sorry, not Christmas 2018. I finally did a Google search and found that it was an ancient well in my vicinity. So Christmas 2018, I went looking for it. I went looking for this well, and it was only on the 1st of January 2019 that it occurred to me to look over a fence, which was even closer to where I lived, and there it was. It was literally sitting next to me all along. And from that point, I became overcome with this desire to actually to commune with the spirit of the well, and to speak light codes to it, to literally bless its presence. Because in one of the journeys that I had with it, I was shown a pristine origin for this well, where, you know, the canopy of trees above it, the light was permeating through the trees, and you had these beams of light beaming onto this gurgling brook, and they were animals in its vicinity drinking from its freshness. And I'm going to use the word fairies and elementals drifting and flying around it. And it was pure magic. And what they were saying to me then was that with the encroachment and the energies of man, the energy field or its territory became smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point now it's enclosed within a space that is it's a historical site, and it's sort of cordoned off with iron fence, you know, and in some sense it's way of protecting itself from the encroachment of human energy. But at the same time, it's feeling now it can't seep into the human world to bless the human world with its magic. So a lot of my work prior to coming to South Africa was to do healing blessings to it, to sing light codes to it. And yeah, it was at that time Marcus came into my world, and he had a waterfall in his vicinity. And I kept saying to him, just say hello to the water, because I didn't want to sing out loud. And he said to me, even if you spoke in light language, because you look foreign anyway in the UK, they're just going to think you're speaking your language. And I thought, you're quite right there, because, you know, it's not like I look English. So even if I started speaking in light language, they'll think, oh, he's just speaking his own language. So I started, as I was walking to work, I'd be speaking light language to the world, and I'd be speaking light language, singing light language as I walked down my path to work. And it was absolutely liberating. It was suddenly like I was given the opportunity and the permission to literally speak, and my difference that I was actually an advantage to being able to express the light language in that locality, if that makes sense. It was like if I truly looked English, and I was walking, speaking light language, they would then have said, yeah, is there something wrong with this guy? He's definitely not speaking English. But the very fact that I didn't look local, I didn't look like a native, became an advantage for that allowed a freer expression of my codes upon the land. So yes, so that's just a small snippet, a long snippet, but small snippet of my story of how light language returned to me.
I like that it returned. Yeah, I've had incidences even like, yeah, I remember as a child having imaginary friends, and I was an only child as well, so like I think that was kind of like, all right, well, she's not got any friends really, so she's on her own. We'll just let her get on with that. But yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned as well about you had the fear even in this life, and I think a lot of people there's something really rooted in as well, like in past lives, maybe even ancestral as well, where we've sort of had to quieten down what we're connecting with and hide our abilities to communicate with the divine because of how that could be perceived. I've got some brilliant memories, of
Yeah,
sort of in this reality, in this sort of on the earth of having experiences where these things have had to be shut down. I've been persecuted and stuff. So, have you had that kind of thing
absolutely.
happen, come through for you? Yeah.
A lot of my personal work that I do on myself has
Mm.
been sort of not so much focused, but we don't always get to choose which area we're working on. It's like, okay, you're working today and you're sort of thinking, okay, because the way I work is truly fluid, truly organic. The way I always say, it's like we're dancing with the moment, the opportunity. And I would have the calling to do work, and I would then gain insight as to the deeper implication of what the work is all about. So I read tarot. I read the tarot to actually then get the energetic narrative that is seeking to be unwound. Okay.
Mm.
I've got the narrative. Then I then use the tachyons to create an energetic grid to support the intention, and then I dive deep into the source of the issue, um, the underlying emotions, the sabotages that may actually occur. Where within the field? Is it within the etheric? Is it within the physical? Is it within the emotional, the mental, or the higher layers of the energy body? That's something else that's actually occurred since I've been to South Africa. I've actually developed my own healing modality that allows for looking for the source point of an issue. So as an example, we all have, no one's completely unwound and everyone's just complete. We are all in the process of unfolding into our perfection. So
Mm.
as each moment presents itself with an opportunity to heal, the trigger that is calling to be met will have a source point somewhere within our multidimensionality. Because if we really feel ourselves as multidimensional beings, the avatar that is Georgie, the avatar that is Walter, is just a point that is containing the whole multidimensional quantum field. And the
Mm.
trigger that may be expressing itself through some aspect of Walter has a source point somewhere within that field. So if we think of the field as a perfect circle or perfect sphere, and nothing else exists beyond that sphere, so this is infinity. This is Godhead. This is eternity, infinity, all presenting itself within this one moment and expressing itself through Walter. And the trigger then has a source point somewhere and links up to this incarnation. And so that very source point or that very trigger becomes an access route to the source point.
Mm.
It's no longer just a wounding, it becomes
Mm.
a pathway to get to the source and then heal it and then bring it to a state of harmony and balance. So with the healing itself, I pull in the intention, I set the grid, I then discover the source points of the issue, engage with the narrative within the source point, because inherently what happens is, as we are incarnating into various avatars, the story becomes a bit like Chinese whispers. The core emotional, the core energetic theme is still the same, but as each layer comes in, it has its own take on that energy field. And to actually heal, you really need to get to the energy heal, decompress it, or take the pressure out, and so it ceases to actually be a distortion within the field. You know, so if we just, if we, and it totally depends. It totally does depend. You know, not every case study is going to say we can go as deep in and unleash the pain and let it free. Sometimes you just got to take the first veneer and say, we know what's at the very core, but the first veneer is all we can do. But a lot of my work has been on myself, has been to release the concepts of normality, the concepts and ideas of normality, of what is normal behavior. Light language is not normal behavior under normal circumstances in this world. Being able to speak to the spirits of the land is not normal behavior. Being able to feel into the energy of a plant or the nature of a plant is not normal behavior. So all those things of reconnecting to my gifts have also required the relinquishing of my holding on to the concepts of normal behavior. And I do feel that 2020 and beyond, I actually feel like it's actually started prior. I really think it's 2011, post 2011. A lot of us, you know, we can look back at some people and think, wow, they've been way showers for way longer. And, you know, we've only just started with our journey now. And I actually feel, in the great scheme of things, everything is working in perfect timing. That even late bloomers were late bloomers or are late bloomers primarily because there has been, you know, prior to 2011, or let's just say just after 2011, there would have been, if all of us started popping out in our own schedule, because, you know, it seems like we're in a wave now as opposed to a sporadic awakening here and there across the world. If we had done that, there would have been a greater impact of the normal consensus to wipe that emerging essence off the face, and you've got to go back into your box. And so what I feel is that there's been a massive awakening of sleeper cells where we were not, it wasn't the time, because we had to come up at a specific time where the impact of our collective expression, collective showing up would have been too potent for the majority or for the normal to then say, no, go back into the box. It was a requirement that we had to stay under, and then boom, because that would have then created a more intense, a more discernible ripple effect across the world, not only to awaken the others who are asleep, at the same time, with the awakening, or with the collective kinship of others who are also going through the journey, that no one else can then dismiss your individual journey as that's not normal, go back in the box, because there's others now who's also feeling the same thing. So there is, I think there's wisdom in that. There is wisdom in that, you know, and I think it's beyond the human planning process. It's a soul expression. It's the right time, but it needed to actually have specific groups come in first to lay the foundation, and then sleeper cells, and then a sudden popping and a bursting, and then the coming together of a new wave. I actually feel like it's like the sleeper cell is more like the second wave as opposed to the first wave. You know, the first wave would have been perhaps the flower power people, but they were still a little on the fringe, and what led to the way showers, the individual way showers and the gatekeepers and stuff. But now you've got more people who are literally sort of feeling the resonance to their truth, recognizing and resonating to their truth, and then truly showing up to the world and being the presence to the world.
Yeah, yeah, and I felt what I was getting coming back to that breath. You know, it's like there's more breath that's then going into each individual in those moments, and it's like perfectly timed and perfectly placed to
Yes.
assist the whole, and that was really nice to see. Yeah, because I relate to that because you know I've been on this journey for quite a long time. You know, I really felt like I was always very aware as a child. Although you know, like you, it's kind of like, oh, when I went to secondary school, I was like, oh, I have to act normal now. And I remember talking to my friend who went in the same school. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be acting normal now. I actually used to kind of dress quite grungy, and I was like, you know, this little, you know, primary school child. I was like, right, gotta put normal clothes on, gonna just like, you know, pretend I listen to the same music as everybody else because, you know, I don't want to cause hassle. I just want to get through this thing. Like, I knew it was going to be like a really rough ride. But you know, then we start to evolve and we start to really blossom. And actually, yeah, like yourself, you know, really only through this period of not being able to leave our house and all the normalities of things started to shift. Work shifted, and you know, having to do everything online. I then gave myself courage to start a YouTube channel. You know, I thought, well, you know, okay, there's going to be probably friends that might look, what is she doing? She doesn't
Exactly.
know any other language. What is she doing? what is going on there? But you know, then you just start to break through those layers, and that felt like a real initiation for me to just to chuck videos out of me, you know, speaking this language was like, you know, because I've been doing it really in secret for quite a while, you know,
So
but it was
you know
like
that
finally,
the secret,
yeah, share.
absolutely, absolutely. And
Mm.
I think one of the things that I discovered way in 2009, I had a really intense experience. My partner at the time passed away. Um, he passed from cancer, but through that journey, you know, the healing aspect of my practice really came into being, because prior to that, my astrology was primarily based on deciphering and, you know, sort of taking a person apart and then saying these are your aspects and there you go. So it was very cerebral with very little heart. You know, it was delivering concepts, but as we were saying earlier prior to the recording, a lot of the process that we are facing now is calling for the engagement of all aspects of ourselves, including the sacral chakra, where there is a dance with the moment, you know, a creative engagement with the moment. And so when I used to practice astrology primarily from this part, and yes, it was always based with, I want to help you. I want to be able to bring forth an understanding of what is before me. I don't feel, I mean, you know, everything is within, everything has its time and its place. But I think at that point, I was delivering primarily from here. And I couldn't deliver from anywhere lower than the heart, because when I later started doing, I took up a course in psychosynthesis because I thought I needed to be a psychotherapist of some sort. And what I then discovered was that on top of this empathic quality that I hold, that this ability, my growing up years, and this is not to imply that my growing up years was like horrendous of any sort, but my sensitivity was so high that my coping mechanism was to literally block up everything all the way up to the throat. So I could speak, but I was a nervous speaker, but everything was cerebral. Everything was cerebral. So as part of my healing journey, I had to go deep in here and literally offload the gunk that I had accumulated through the years, that I had not attempted to process through the years, because it was literally, if I can't feel it, then it's not real. So it literally was, everything below this was just like a block, and everything here was potent. I could do chemistry, I could do math, I could decipher concepts and stuff. But if you said, let's get creative with that, it'd be like, it's not in the book. It's not in the books. I'm not really sure how to do it like that. And I think part of our process, when we actually get to the sacral, first, before we get to the sacral, we actually hit our solar plexus. So that's where our power is, a sense of our true potency. But when we get to the sacral, that power can dance. And therefore, it takes you from the level of a basic chef in the kitchen to master chef, because suddenly you're no longer thinking within the box, you're thinking outside of the box. You're thinking, well, I've got this and I've got this. How can I actually juggle that in a way that's completely unique to me? Whereas prior to that, when you don't actually connect to that sacral aspect, you'll be like, okay, the book says with this and this, I can do this. Okay, I can do that. And so you can become a great mimic. You can be an amazing replicator of what's already been done. But if you really want to pull through what you actually carry within your own source codes, that sacral needs to be opened up. And one of the things I always say when I get cases within my client base where there is some kind of distortion within the sacral, I always say, whenever you can, dance the figure of 8 with your hips and breathe. And when you're doing that breath work, always imagine that you're breathing all the way like a snake going downwards. Everyone's talking about Kundalini coming up, Kundalini coming up. This is the time to really bring that energy, that force of life down through the process of dancing on the spot or dancing with a figure of 8, and allowing that movement to really break the energetic crustaceans around the sacral, and be gentle with it, because this is not something where you want to suddenly open up to all that emotional gunk, because like any healing process, the offloading of that stuff requires some appreciation of what that stuff is. So if you've carried a lot of emotional hurts within your sacral, don't go diving in to suddenly hope to clear that in one day. Yes, you can facilitate that, but allow the recognition, just like the inner child. You would never manhandle a baby. Why would you manhandle your inner child? So approach that moment, that sacred child, that sacred creative essence, with the same gentleness and awe that you would a baby in front of you. And it's almost like you're rocking that baby to sleep, but this way you're rocking this baby awake, and allow the upwelling, the purging to occur naturally. And what you then find is that you literally, because as you direct that breath through the heart, through the solar plexus, you're doing the clearing work through the solar plexus anyway. So you are starting to realign with the true force of your power, the true nature of your sovereignty. I mean, for me, sovereignty lies in 3 points: the crown, or the head, the heart, and the body. When they align, true sovereignty comes home. But the sovereignty of the body, the sovereignty of presence, can also be accessed through the solar plexus. And when we actually align and awaken that aspect, and it then comes to sit within the bowl of the sacral, all sorts can happen. All sorts of all expressions can come forth, because they are expressions of you.
Oh, that was really beautiful. And because I feel that, I've been very, a sensitive soul, and just kind of, it's hard to take it on. And there's a word for it, isn't there, when you've got this feeling where you can feel sounds and
Mm-hmm.
colours and
Yes.
things like that. And it can be quite overwhelming for people. And I think a lot of people that are very sensitively attuned and maybe reaching light codes do have that sense to then be really up here, because it's easier to be up there than to really feel into the body and actually know that you're connected to the earth. And yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done there, isn't there? I think even within our collective, and there's a lot of collective wounding within that space.
If you
So
come back to the idea that we have, even if we don't believe in reincarnation, as a tribe, our this segment of humanity, let's call it this segment of humanity, has experienced levels of suffering, has experienced levels of being disowned, have experienced some form of inequality. That in itself would have actually impacted and been and would have been stored within the cellular memory of this segment of humanity, of our tribe. Yeah. And if we are going to be embodied, and what is embodiment? Embodiment is where the I am presence, I am sovereign, I am eternal is totally in the body, totally in the avatar, totally anchored, not just within the head, not just within the heart, but so powerfully present in physical form. Before it actually gets there, it's going to have to actually dive through the cellular memory and records of the hurts that we've actually engaged with and would have actually gone through as a segment of society. And I think a lot of, and I feel that on some level, anyone who practices light codes, as my team always said to me, nothing leaves you unaffected. Even if it's for a microsecond, something comes into your field, an imprint of its ripple will be seen within your energy wave. So nothing leaves you unaffected. So that to me would imply that each person who's actually just spouting their light codes, on some level, that code is going to be for them anyway, and it's going to ripple through the layers of themselves, not just into the world. But if the physical being is a fractal of the physical world, what you're spilling into the world is you're also spilling into you. And so you are doing the work, and you are going to feel the impact of your activations. You're going to feel the impact of your activations. And I think part of our process is to honor the time out, to process and release and to do the healing work so that we can go to the next level of the activation. When I first started going crazy with the light codes in drawings and written work, I was literally creating one a day. If you go into my Instagram profile, you'll see like there was like almost one a day, and it was like crazy. It was like, how did I actually do that? Whereas now I'm doing a lot of like activations for the light body. There's another one coming out shortly for the perception of infinity that comes through when you are totally aligned with your light body and your I am presence, and then the recognition or the perception of the interconnectedness of things. So that's coming in. And I'm sort of thinking, my codes now come in, and it'd be like 2-3 weeks before another one comes out, because on some level, I need to process that stuff and allow it to anchor into my system.
yeah, that's true. Like just sometimes when you just draw, there's like doodles everywhere, and like if there's a pen and paper in the same space, there'd probably be my hand creating something. Whereas now it's refining, and it's becoming like, because you are noticing how it works through your field, so you're like having to go and integrate that. Maybe stuff comes up to be cleared so that you can then go further with it and create more. So I'd imagine then everything that you said about with the sacral, that helped, did it, to help the coding, because you were doing light sounding, and then you went into the coding, because you create I really like your artwork. It's really profound, but it's got this very preciseness. Like I really enjoy that. There's like and there's something else that I really enjoy, which is where you have techniques and modalities alongside working with them, and that's something similar to how I like to work. And rather than just putting them out there and going, here they are, look at them, and yes, on a cellular level, there's going to be a shift and something, but to have these tools and ways of working with them individually, that just to me, it really speaks to me a lot.
Yes, you're quite right. I have been blending astrology, astrological moments. I've even released certain codes at specific astrological moments to tie in with, I think there was one with a Venus and Uranus energy. So I timed it with a specific Venus-Uranus interaction. And I guess in a sense, as I said earlier, I've got that Venus-Uranus energy. It was healing to me, but just as much so for all the other key holders out there who had that Venus-Uranus energy to facilitate the liberation of the love function within themselves. I think when we really look at the nature of light codes, it's not just a written word, it's not just a spoken word, it's not just the image. It starts to become where everything has its code, everything, even in this moment, the door behind me is reverberating a specific essence. The altar behind me has its own essence. And when you start to really dance with your creative process, you find that even shade or even nuance in color can begin to reflect a specific, and the word is nuance, of that energy. It's like you can say a red heart versus a pink heart versus a white heart, and each of those hearts will all say heart, but each will actually express a specific frequency of that love. And so allowing your intuitive, guided process to then inform through your own vocabulary of your tools or your environment or the various symbols that you have, to then imprint upon the image or the process that you're going to deliver, to then deliver the specific message. Because I think when it first started, it was literally joy, love, this, and now it's becoming really nuanced in its expression. It's not just light body. It's like there's specific aspects of it. I'm even using, because I know it's almost going to seem like I do everything, but I work with like dowsing, I work with pendulum healing. And what I also do is I also use specific code sequences to then streamline and further define the energy that I'm trying to transmit through the image that I create. So it's a little cheeky because, it's like when they first started giving me the codes, it would be like, I'd step out and I'd be doing things and I'd be feeling like I'm not in charge, but it literally feels like I'm here, but there's also like another I who's also doing the work with me.
That's amazing. I don't know why I just had like a little clearing going on in my throat, so I had to mute myself while you were speaking there, like. But it's great that you are precise and that you are doing it in the way that you are, because it just helps other people also to understand how we can navigate these energies and frequencies. Because we're seeing so much of it now. It is creating a momentum, and they're not just, and I'm not saying that just beautiful pictures and paintings aren't, having effect, because they definitely do.
Yeah.
But I see it as art medicine. I see it as code medicine. It is like an energetic portal into a frequency and an energy, because it is always emitting the frequency, like like you said about the door.
Exactly.
So yeah, if we can start to utilize that more and start to understand it, this is like a whole new wave of healing technology that we're now getting access to, you know. And that will expand and grow. I feel like the more um, people start to awaken aware and become aware of it, then people like yourself who've been doing it for a while and understand that, you can start to teach and show people how to do it.
Absolutely.
Don't know what's going on here. I've got a big throat thing. Some massive truth in my throat coming up.
What did you say, Georgie? No, but I think when light codes really came forth, the impression that I got was light codes are the words from your heart. You know, I think inherently it is the expression of the heart. It's directed through the awareness and the consciousness. So, you know, we decide, or sometimes more often than not, they tell me what I need to actually do. And then there's a kind, I won't say it's a possession of sorts. It's literally like, I feel like I've got to do certain things. And then later on, they'll tell me what it's about. There are other ways of working in which I decide what I want to pull through, and they give me the specific ingredients to pull through to deliver the intention that I've sought. But the overall essence that I feel with light codes or light language is that it is, or as they say, it's light technology. It is the expression of the heart. And I think the first part of the process of anyone who is attempting to engage with the process is to really clear the field of their heart, because as my team keeps saying, the true essence of you is not here. The true essence of you is not in the body. The true eternal essence of you is here. So if you really want your multidimensional aspect to be speaking through your avatar, this part needs to be open. And I don't mean open wide to the point of being vulnerable and putting yourself in danger. It is, you know, like any organic process, you recognize your environment and you engage with it in a way that allows you sovereignty and also allows your safety and your blossoming. And so the same thing here, allowing your open-heartedness to then bring forth the wisdom that you carry within your eternity. You know, I feel that each one of us, this awakening, what is this awakening all about? It's the awakening to the fact that each and every one of us are eternal in our presence, and not from a kind of lip service expression of eternity, but a remembering, a visceral remembering that this eternity is expressing itself right now with this voice. But if we step into the essence that is looking through behind the eyes, then that eternity has other voices, has other gifts, and has other symbols, and allowing those symbols then to be taken through the portal of the heart and then used accordingly to facilitate a new tapestry, to facilitate a new vibrancy, to facilitate a new picture that, you know, each of us have come to deliver. You know, I think we've each come to deliver our uniqueness. Our uniqueness carries the gift, because in being present, in allowing our presence, our divine presence, to be fully present within the now, we become that gift. We become that present to the now. And that's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's so lovely. Because yeah, we were talking earlier as well, weren't we, about really owning that path and knowing that, you know, when we're here to share this and it's okay, you know, it doesn't, that the norm of what we're, you know, what we're trying to get the words out now, how we've been led to believe is that's the way. And then if you're not doing that way, because maybe it's a new way that people haven't seen before, that it's somehow wrong. But it's just going with that flow, being in your sacral flow, listening to your inner guidance.
and allowing that flow to flow within you. And just as you were saying, perhaps we've never done this before, check with your guides. I think they'll tell you we have. Atlantis, Lemuria, and other old cultures we have, and I think just feeling into that sort of brings a recognition that even this process is cyclic, that like autumn leads to winter, leads to spring, leads to summer. Even the awakening process is a cyclic process, that we've been here before, we've awakened before, that we have achieved a state of remembrance, and then it goes back to sleep. And like every daily cycle, we wake up, we go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep. And I think in the eternal expression of the multidimensional soul, it does that. It goes to sleep, it wakes up, it goes to sleep, it wakes up. And it's not a oh, I wish we could actually get there now. It's like, can we really fight our rhythm? And again, this takes us back into the rhythm of our own system, that dance. What is my flow? What is my rhythm? What is my rhythm? Do I need to attempt to become more than who I am? Because that already implies that your energy field is trying to lead the way, when your presence really calls for a very centered field where your consciousness, your being, is almost like a pillar of light that then anchors all the layers of your presence into one spot to give you the greatest impact, as opposed to your energy field being over there and you're being dragged over there, and then suddenly you're being dragged over there. Where if you start to just pull in and you say, the impulse to be dragged over there is not really my own. It could be an external impulse to meet a demand or a social expectation or something here, something there. It's really about, who am I? Why am I here? And as we ask those very simple questions, we begin to really start to remember ourselves. And remember as in not just in a state of remembrance, but a state of realigning and bringing the aspects back to say, this is me, this is me, nothing more, nothing less, this is me. And I think when we come to that state of being truly centered and at peace with the this is me, you've hit it. You're in the zone.
I love that. Yeah, it's just like, it's just being, presence is the key. It's the key to this transformation, and not having the expectations of that, of where it's going, and and that's a journey in itself, and allowing that, and not getting caught up in perfection.
Exactly. Perfection. Like, is there such a thing? Perfection is in the imperfection.
Yeah. Wabi sabi. Okay, so with that being said, I
Yes.
really feel like a beautiful transmission from your heart would be so, we would all be very honored to
Okay.
receive it. Yeah.
Okay. Close your eyes and allow yourself to be fully present in where you are. Be fully present in your seat. Feel your being within your space. Allow the weight of your body to become conscious to your awareness. And at this point, place your left hand on your crown and your right hand on your heart. And I'll do a light activation to clear the pathway from your crown to your heart. In karkaim ayasam shoshosai kainai. Royo kukukum sai shasha isai yainai. Korkoyonum aki. Kasiani ay shashasi akukur kayanai. Karkayai. Karyaam sam kayanai. Usha imsha ikai. Allow yourself to take a nice loving breath, directing the breath from your crown all the way to your heart, and hold it there for a moment. And as you begin to release your breath, bring your left hand to your heart and your right hand just below your belly button. And we'll be doing a clearing at a level that is appropriate for you to clear the pathway between your heart and your sacral. Imkisha, imkisha, imkisha. Urkayima inna ikakaria shoshom saya. Ikaria I, ikaria I, ikaria I. Amsaria kukushna minai. Take a nice loving breath, this time directing the breath with the in-breath all the way to your heart. And with the out-breath, feeling your hand under your belly button. At this point, I want you to take both hands and place them on your hips. The light activation at this point will support the creative figure 8 flow within your hip and within your hips and within your sacral chakra to allow for the expansion of your creativity and the recognition, the true appreciation and recognition of your own natural flow. Unkarya imnaiya ikashnam yagnina ukurya mukursama isha I imya 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 urkaya nasim sai imya 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 kurkianina unkarki kikamsi sai. Okay. I'm being asked to direct your hands now, both palms, to be placed on the back of on your back, on the top of your buttocks, just where your sacrum is. Okay. Okay, so this is, again, for some reason, I'm actually feeling like this is to support with the anchoring of your presence into your physical form. Imkish, imkish. Imkish karkia sin sayina, imkish narkia sasaina, imkish narkia iinai, imsa kurkuma iai, kariamu umnana ikaina. Imkish karkia si sinai iinai. Take an in-breath, feeling the in-breath all the way to your heart. And with the out-breath, I want you to feel your feet as it makes contact to the earth. I want 3 cycles of this. So in-breath, feeling the breath to your heart. Out-breath, feeling your feet. You can wiggle your feet if you want. This is just to support with the true anchoring of your presence in your physicality, in your avatar. In-breath to your heart. Out-breath to your feet, feeling your feet. In-breath to your heart. In deep gratitude for the life breath that is flowing through you. And with the out-breath, feeling your feet, knowing that the same breath is blessing the earth that you stand upon. Now bring both hands to your heart as though in prayer position. This is to fully anchor this blessing into your being, in Karkianina I, recognizing the sovereignty that you are, Karkayashasha Sinsaika, blessing you with the remembrance of the I am multidimensional presence that you truly are, that you, whatever you call yourself right now, are just an avatar, but the true essence of your being looks behind the eyes that sees through your eyes. Kishnamu ur kia I mamsai kaisha sha sin saina unka kir kaya imai unka. Take some loving, respectful, gratitude-filled breath all the way to your heart. Hold it there for a moment, just knowing that that life breath is infusing every cell of your being. And with the out breath, gently feeling your feet, becoming aware of your physical form, becoming aware of the weight of your being upon your chair. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you so much for that, Walter.
You're most welcome.
Um, really beautiful energy, very peaceful. And yeah, your sound language reminds me of a wonderful friend June. He was on here, got similar dialect, which is just, and I really resonate. It's just like
Oh,
beautiful,
wow.
loving, kind souls. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
gifting that. Really, truly, lots of clarity within that energy there. Thank you.
Most
So everybody who's all in a beautiful love bubble with us right now, we're going to give all the links and descriptions of where we can find Walter, because I'm sure many of you are now going to be super intrigued. If you haven't already seen Walter's beautiful artwork or his incredible, sessions and things that he provides, so please gift us with some information on your current offerings.
Okay. So if you need to get in touch with me, I can be found on thespiritedpathway.co.uk. You can also find me on lyran.starseed.888. We should have talked about star seeds as well. But yeah, and get in touch. I think there are certain aspects of the journey that I'm very passionate about. I love the idea of tackling big issues, as in big issues within, not just from an emotional level, but even physiological issues that come up. And I think it is one of those things where it's, if we don't try, we'll never know. And I'm thinking, I'd like to give it a try. I'd like to see what we can, as a collective, what we can shift in what we can transmute in our world going forward. There's such a standard as to what we can do. And energetically, I think we as a collective are reaching a point where we're saying we can do more. And it's moments like this, in moments of breaking our own boxes, that we can then find the additional things that we carry within ourselves, the additional gifts that we've come into the world to bring. So yeah, get in touch.
Yeah, do I think everyone's gonna be like now, like, oh, gotta go look at the links. We've got to find this beautiful artwork and play with it, because there's so many cool activations and ways that you can work.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Honestly, honor, absolute honor. And thank you everybody who's listened and enjoyed. I love your feedback. Feel free to reach out to either one of us and let us know, especially in the comments. It helps to share this out as well, so people can find this beautiful information. There's going to be many people out there that are just starting to understand this information. Maybe it's for them to find, so they can open the Pandora's box to light
Yeah,
codes and
there is
stuff. So this is important to share this, to share the mystical in a normal format, I like to say, because we're just showing how this is for everybody. Look at these wonderful people who are coming on the show. They're human, they're grounded, they're embodying this path, and it's a really beautiful thing to witness and see. So again, thank you, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you.